All right. Why is everybody looking down? Oh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Excuse me while I correct my wardrobe. If you know, you know. Go Boca! There we go. Let's get that fixed. And if you're wondering, yes, these are Khaleesi's. All right? All right? Oh, yeah. It's awesome. You may be seated. What an incredible honor and privilege for me to be here. I'm representing Pastor Chris Hodges, who planted the very first Ark Church ever in 2001. I had the privilege of being there with him. I was the first staff member at Church of the Highlands 22 and a half, almost 23 years ago, and have been along the ride for that journey. And what an honor it is to represent him. I spoke with him yesterday. He sends his love. And I FaceTime with Dino. Dino, you got to get his face. So he sends his love as well. And what a privilege it is for me to be here. I want to honor this house, CFC. I mean, my goodness. Thank you so much to the entire team. Pastor Theo, I mean, we just honor you. And they've been over to Birmingham and have been with us for an event that Pastor Chris does where we help other churches learn how we've done church for the last 22 years. And so we're honored to have many of you that have come through Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah. So I'm actually not from Birmingham, Alabama. I've lived there for almost 23 years. But I was born and raised in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, okay? So that's why I don't have the southern accent, y'all. But I want to show you my family real quick. I always got to introduce my family. There's my beautiful family. It looks like I have 3 daughters, but the beautiful lady in blue is actually my wife of 27 years. That's Rachel. And then the bride in that photo is my youngest daughter who just turned 22, and her wedding was just a few months ago. And so that's pretty awesome. Her husband, Luke, between her and my wife. And then the next beautiful lady is on the front row right here. My daughter, Ashlyn, is traveling with me, and her husband on the left, Chapman. They celebrated their 2-year anniversary 2 days ago. So they had to FaceTime. I took my daughter away from her husband on her 2nd anniversary. No better reason than to come to South Africa. So happy to be here. I'm not your normal pastor, so I'm incredibly intimidated by the pastors in this room. I'm an associate pastor, okay? And I don't have a normal pastor background. I grew up in Colorado, the son of a tow truck driver, okay? My dad started a towing business when I was a little boy, and then he also started racing cars. If anybody's ever seen the movie Cars, anybody ever seen the movie Cars? Okay, amazing movie, but I came first. I had Tow Mater as a part of my family, and I had Lightning McQueen as a part of my family. Long before Pixar was ever even a thing, and before that movie existed, I grew up in that. I want to show you our tow truck, just so you know what I'm talking about. This is in Colorado. You can see the snow, and I'm on the far right there. That's obviously not when I was a child, but that's our towing business that I grew up in, which, interestingly enough, towing is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, helping people in need. Sound familiar? I think the towing business set me up real good for ministry. And then Lightning McQueen came into my life because I wanted to be like my dad. And my dad competed in this crazy race. It's a rally race where you race cars up a mountain, one of the highest mountains in North America. It's called Pikes Peak. There's a road to the top, and you race against the clock and see who can get to the top the fastest. It's one of the most dangerous races in the world, and we have competitors from all over the world that travel to Colorado to race that race. My dad did it 40 years, and I just retired after doing it for 30 years, and so I wanted to show you my McQueen, and then we'll get into God's Word. Check it out. What a blast. I know what people ask me when I travel, and it's They ask about Church of the Highlands. They ask about ARC. ARC, by the way, plants this weekend our 1,083rd church this Sunday. I mean, it's a miracle in 22 and a half years. And what an amazing vision that Pastor Chris, Pastor Greg Surratt, and other pastors had. And our church, Church of the Highlands, was really an experiment, not knowing if the ARC would even work. And it's obviously working incredibly well. We're all here because of what God has done through the ARC lead team. And now your lead team here in South Africa, they are second to none. They are absolutely amazing. Let's give it up for the ARC lead team here. Thank you for having us. We honor you. But people are always like, well, Layne, how did Highlands explode like that? How did you grow like that? We now have, we open our 25th location in Alabama this coming Sunday, and in just 22 years, it's a miracle. It is only by the grace of God and the power of God. But God uses people, and God has been using Pastor Chris in a great way, far beyond our church, to help other churches. And so I just know the question is like, well, how did all that happen? And so I'm going to do my best. Of 23 years at Highlands, and actually Pastor Chris was my youth pastor in Colorado 34 years ago. So I go back to 17 years old when he started influencing my life. He's been a spiritual leader in my life for 34 years. And if there's anything that I could communicate about what he has done well at Highlands, it's in one word: clarity. And so I believe every leader, whether you're a senior leader, whether you're a volunteer, a staff member, an associate pastor, a youth pastor, leaders need to bring clarity for their people. Proverbs 29:18 says, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. And I want to give you clarity in three key areas, extremely important areas. The first two areas are equally as important as the third, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those two, because what I felt like the Lord impressed upon me to do is teach the third area, which I believe may be the most difficult area, so that's what we're going to focus on. So clarity in three areas is what Pastor Chris has helped us with at Church of the Highlands. And number one, that would be clear vision. And I would expect that every one of your churches, over 100 churches represented, 150 churches, I would believe and I would hope that you have a clear vision. Meaning you could ask any staff member, you could even ask people in your church, what's the vision of this church? It should be very, very clear. The vision is not what you do, it's why you do it. It's the why behind the what. It's not church services and small groups. It's not those things. It's actually people getting saved, people getting delivered, people getting healed. Like that's the why behind the what. The vision is most important, and it has to be clear. But unfortunately, in ministry, we fall in love with what we do more than the why we do it. We have to be very careful. If we're not careful, I've unfortunately met some pastors, and I've actually leaned this direction after I get offended. Some pastors love the crowd more than the person. And we get attached to how we're doing it, and we have to stay attached to the reason why we're doing it. They love preaching more than they love changed lives. We have to be very, very careful that we don't let that happen. Our vision at Church of the Highlands, we believe it's God's vision for his people, going all the way back to Exodus when God was going to deliver Israel from Egypt. We believe that's God's vision. It's still God's vision, that the Great Commission, you can actually find it in Exodus. But the way we say it in our street language at Church of the Highlands, for the people that don't know God, to understand our vision, it's know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make a difference. That's the vision of our house. Whatever your vision is, once it's clear, you need to consistently communicate the vision in a clear and compelling way, almost ad nauseum. I mean, we have the vision on our walls. We talk about the vision in our messages. I mean, we just say it over and over again because vision leaks. You got to keep refilling it back into the bucket of ministry. Like, keep saying it and make it so clear that everyone in the church, even if they've only been there for a few weeks, knows what the vision is. The second area is what we actually love doing, and that is clear systems. So the clear vision is pretty easy. Everybody can memorize it. We can learn what the why is. but clear systems. Systems are how we accomplish vision. That's what we do to see the vision come to pass. And so if you're I'm not going to say it. I just know some people that I call them soupies, super spiritual. And when you bring up systems to a soupy, they push back. Oh no, we need the flow of the Holy Spirit. We can't have systems. We can't get organized. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, as far as I know, everything God has created is systems. Ever heard of the solar system? like our body that is made in the image of God is completely filled with different systems. The skeletal system, the muscular system, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, and it goes on and on. We are created in His image, and He is a systems God. And whatever your systems are, they're happening whether you know they're systems or not. You have a system. And Pastor Chris is now known as like the systems pastor. It's only because the systems that he is leading us through are actually working. So what you need to know is, are the things that we are doing actually delivering our vision? And if they're not, don't stay married to those things. Adjust those things until the vision can be accomplished. Don't fall in love with your systems. Pastor Chris once had a pastor in Alabama, in another city, just call him up. Hey, I want to pay you $100 to come have lunch with you and pick your brain. And he came up to Birmingham, and Pastor Chris obviously wouldn't take his $100, and they have lunch. And he's like, man, I've been leading this church for over 10 years, and we're just not growing. And Pastor Chris just started with, how's your services? And I'm trying to make it really quick. And basically, they got through the whole service part, worship and all of that. And then he's like, then I get into my message. And Pastor Chris is like, well, how long do you preach? And he's like, well, hour and 15 minutes. And Pastor Chris responded just like you did. Oh. And Pastor Chris said, that's a really long time. And he said, yeah, but I'm really good. He really said that. And Pastor Chris said, if you were that good, you'd be growing. Pastor Chris recommended, hey, shorten up your message so you can reach lost people. And the guy said, I will change anything but how I preach. I am not changing that. And he got up and he left. Very angry, very offended that Pastor Chris would push on what was most important to him. If every person in the city could get saved if you only preached 5 minutes, are you willing to only preach 5 minutes? And what he was saying was no. I have to preach the way I want to preach. And we can't go there. We can't be in that place. I've helped lots of churches. Pastor Chris had me for about 10 years travel America, actually all over the world, and just work with churches and try to help them grow. And if they're really stuck, and there's actually a huge church in Southern California, they had been stuck for years. And I mean, they're over 10,000, and they're just stuck. And pastor's like, help me learn how we can grow. And I said, well, let me meet with your top leaders. And he lined up 9 meetings for me, and I only asked 2 questions. I said, I only need 2 minutes with each person, but I don't want them to hear what I'm asking. I asked the vision. All 9 of them said exactly, verbatim. Even with the right inflection and the right pauses, they repeated the vision. And then I said, how do you accomplish the vision? What do you do for that vision to actually happen? And I got 9 different answers. There was not clarity in the systems that the church was doing to get to the vision. It was interesting because each of the 9 people led different areas of the church, and the system that they talked about had to do with their department. Which means in this game called ministry, you had players going every different direction instead of a unified team going to the same goal. Go Boca. All right. Like, I thought more people would get that. I'm in South Africa. There's a big game on Sunday night. Do you know about that? But we've got to, we don't only need clarity and vision, which most churches have, but we have to have clarity in systems. And what are the best systems? The best systems are the ones that work. So just keep working on the systems until you actually start seeing the results of the vision. So make sure you're willing to do that. If you want a helpful book on systems, it's actually a secular business book. It's called E-Myth. The E stands for entrepreneurial. The entrepreneurial myth, it's called the E-Myth Revisited by author Michael Gerber. That entire book talks about the product is not what determines the success. It's the systems that deliver it. I don't know if you've ever had a McDonald's hamburger. They're terrible. No one would say it's the best hamburger they've ever had. However, they sell more hamburgers than anybody in the world because of the systems that deliver it. Same with Starbucks. If you really love coffee, you don't like Starbucks. They don't have the best coffee, but they sell more than any other coffee company in the world because of the systems. And so we need to think that way even in our church. Work on those systems until they're healthy and you're seeing it accomplished. Okay, the third area, which we're going to dive in, and I'm going to do my best to get through this. We're going to really break this down, and that is you have to have a clear culture. This is the most difficult because culture has nothing to do with vision and has nothing to do with systems. Has everything to do with human beings. Has everything to do with how the leaders are behaving. That is what creates the culture, good or bad. And so this area, I see it this way. You've heard the term CEO or CFO. I want to teach you about the CCC, and I'm going to charge you to make all of your leaders the CCC of your church, that they would become the chief culture creator. Because it's not just on the pastor. It's on every leader, from the newest volunteer to the longest standing staff member and everybody in between, because they are all creating the culture that the church will experience. And so every one of them need to be the chief culture creator. Every person on your team is creating culture all the time. Culture, Pastor Chris describes it to our team and to churches that the culture is the soil for God's seed to grow in. And all of us know if you put the seed on concrete, on pavement, it's not going to grow. It needs to be in good soil. And the better the soil, the more growth can take place. And so the culture is the soil that we want. You need to work very hard to make sure the soil is healthy in your church. Now, we do know, the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3, like, I planted, Apollos planted, I watered, but it's God. Only God makes the seed grow. But our job is to work on the soil. God's going to bring the increase, but we still have work to do. He's going to bring the harvest, but we've got to make sure the soil is ready. Pastor Chris says this: you can have the worst systems with great culture and things will grow. I've actually been to some of those churches. You can have the best systems with bad culture. Nothing grows. I've been to some of those churches. That's how important culture is. So what kind of soil are you making? Galatians 6, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh will, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. And it's so important for us to understand where that culture comes from. As you saw the video of me racing up that mountain, the vision for that race is to finish, to get to the top, 14,115 feet. That's the vision. The system to get to the top of the mountain is the car that I'm driving. That's the system that's going to deliver me from the bottom to the top. But why did I love racing that race for 30 years, watching my dad race it even before that, being a part of that race my entire life? Why did I love it? It was because of the culture of our team. It was the personalities of the other pit crew members. It was the late nights and the laughter and the jokes and the delirious moments when we have to work on the race car 24 hours straight to get it back up on the mountain and go again. And it was the people on the team that made it so amazing for 30 years. And it's the same thing for our churches. Like, we know the vision and we've got the systems, but it's the people that are going to create that culture that's really going to make it work. Vision doesn't drive or create culture. System doesn't drive or create culture. People create culture. Their behavior creates culture. Their behavior specifically is what we have to focus on. So memorizing the values doesn't help your culture. Quoting them doesn't help your culture. Plastering your values on the walls, it doesn't help your culture. No, demonstrating our values is how we create a life-giving culture. We have to demonstrate them, not just know them. We have to demonstrate them. Now, there are very common excuses not to demonstrate values. And I'm going to give you, we have 4 values at Highlands. Some of you might have 20. You could have 1,000. Your values are awesome. What you have to teach is to make sure your people are demonstrating, your leaders are demonstrating those values. But here's some common excuses why I don't demonstrate the value. Well, that's not my personality. I'm introverted, so I can't demonstrate that value. I can demonstrate the other 3, but I can't demonstrate that. Or our emotions. Well, I just don't feel good today. I don't feel like really worshiping today. I don't feel like sitting in 3 services, singing the same songs, listening to the same message, and then having to come back for the 4th service. I don't feel it today. So that becomes an excuse, as we won't demonstrate the values that we need to have a life-giving culture. And then there's, of course, circumstances. Things go wrong. Pandemic, anybody? Like, stuff's not working. And then all of a sudden, it's pity us, and everything's wrong, and it eats away at the culture, and it begins to be an excuse that we don't demonstrate the values that we have. So we have 4 values at Highlands. If you don't have values, I highly encourage you to use these, okay? So our values are love God, love people, pursue excellence, and choose joy. We want to keep it simple. We want our team to be able to remember it. Love God, love people, pursue excellence, choose joy. I'm going to walk you through how we demonstrate those so that you can filter through your own values and create ways that you can teach your leaders to demonstrate your values. So I'm not telling you this is the only way to do it. I'm just using this as an example, which has helped us across all 25 campuses, 10 of which are portable. So we don't even have a building. We're bump in and bump out, set up and tear down every week. And we've been a portable church in some location for 23 years, so 22 and a half. And so it's very important that even when we're having church in a school, on a basketball court, that it still feels like our permanent building with thousands of seats. You want it to feel the same, and the only way that happens is not vision or systems, it's culture. That's why we have to demonstrate these values. So the first one is demonstrating a love for God. So what does that look like? Worship teams get it. Pastor Torrin, I'm calling him pastor now. He's planting a church. Come on, man. I mean, that is just so awesome. But what a perfect example, like when he leads multiple services, when he hasn't slept at all and traveled across the globe, he is demonstrating a love for God, and I would assume he doesn't feel like it today. But he still demonstrated it. The worship teams probably get this more than any other team. They can't let their emotions come through when they're having a bad day because they're setting the example. We actually, our pastor Chris, was a worship leader for many years of his ministry. He's just celebrating 40 years of ministry. I think he was a worship leader for 25 of those years. And so he's very good at it. But he tells our worship team, hey, if everyone in the room is doing what you're doing and looking like you're looking, is that the culture that we want? Man, I've been in some worship sets where the musicians look like they hate Jesus. I'm just saying. But that's the example that you don't have a choice when you're a leader. And I would guarantee you this, Pastor Chris, he's introverted. He's not a demonstrative person. He's not loud. But he is on the front row of every service that we ever had for 23 years. And he is the lead worshiper in the room from the front row. Now, I believe, I've never been in his private prayer time. I believe when he worships in his private prayer time, it's probably pretty quiet. It's probably pretty subdued. But Pastor Chris, sometimes in an auditorium of 2,400 people, is the only one jumping up and down. That's not his personality. He understands I need a culture of worshiping God. So I have to demonstrate a love for God. Our team, our pastors sit on the front row. We have 4 Sunday services. Sit on the front row. I'm just telling you, I'm a Denver Bronco fan. If they're playing on Sunday night, I don't even want to go back to church. Church is the last place I want to be. We already sang those songs 3 times. We already heard that message 3 times. We play back Pastor Chris's video on Sunday night. So I've literally already seen this message. So my emotions on the front row are this. Or, what's the score? But I can't do that. I'm a leader. I have to create culture. Now, what you have to be very careful of is, well, Layne, that's hypocrisy. No, it's not. That's called leadership. Leaders don't have the privilege to have bad days. When we're at church, it's time to step it up. It's time to step outside of our personality. Well, I just love worshiping God like this. That's great for you and your private worship time, but we're creating a culture that worships. So we're going to demonstrate that we love God. We're going to set the tone. Our dream team, our volunteers around the room are going to set the tone for worship in the room. We're going to demonstrate that value to create a culture that loves God. Psalm 100, 1 through 2, and I could just keep reading that chapter. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Look like you're happy to be in worship, even if it is the 4th service. All right? I mean, come before him with joyful songs, so you're smiling. When we have 21 days of prayer twice a year. We do 21 days of prayer and fasting in January, and we do 21 days of prayer. And the staff, we on the side say feasting. We don't really focus on fasting in August. Thank you, Jesus. But anyways, we have 21 days straight of prayer meetings for our church. Thousands of people there. Well, our pastors are the leaders. So even during the prayer meeting, we have to set the example. Well, I've been a part of 21 days of prayer for 22 years. Like, that's another prayer meeting. But I have to remember, people are watching me. I'm not even the senior pastor. I don't even preach at Highlands on Sundays. But people see leaders, and they notice. And so we have to model that. Okay, moving to demonstrating a love for people. And this is just so much easier to get down for this. So I'm very task-oriented. All right, so I'm the executive pastor of the church. If we have no titles, but that's the best way to describe it. So I'm task-oriented. And Pastor Chris loves to give tasks away. Like, he's a great leader, and he knows I'm his guy. He knows I'm his guy. And so it might be before a service, and he's like, hey, Layne, I changed my notes. Can you go run to the copier and reprint my notes? And I'm like, yes, sir. In my heart and my vision, every part of me is like straight through the auditorium. I don't know why this is here. Straight through the auditorium. And so my personality is task. But I have to stop and demonstrate a love for people. Oh, I need to get to the copier. Hey, Donovan, how you doing? We were praying for your career last week. Did you get the job? Did you? John Maxwell teaches it as walk slowly through the crowd. So my personality type is to sprint through the crowd. Get the task done. Task over people. But our value is people over task. So I have to demonstrate a love for people and go against what I want to do and take time and put my hand on somebody's shoulder. And because you notice people are looking at you like, I think he works here. I think he's a leader here. If they don't know who I am, they're like, I think I recognize, like, and so they're paying attention. And what they're going to talk about at lunch that day is Pastor Layne walked right by me. He's known me for 10 years. He didn't even look at me. Or I met Pastor Layne last week, and he stopped, and he shook my hand, and he looked me in the eye and asked me how I was doing, and he stayed there, and he listened to my answer. They're going to talk about you at lunch. Whether we demonstrate we love them or not is what they're going to talk about. So I can't depend on my personality. Introverts, you don't have an excuse to not demonstrate a love for people during church. Be introverted at home. Re-energize at home. But we're at church. We're in ministry. We are called to love people. So we have to demonstrate that we actually love people. I haven't seen Pastor Corey in so long, and I hugged him so big earlier today because I love you, man. I love you. You're an amazing pastor. He should be preaching, not me, that's for sure. Man, it's a long way back up on this place. But Dion, you're the man. What a worship leader Dion is. All right. Okay. I hope you're getting it. Oh my goodness. It just helps when the whole team knows that there's clarity. We know that's what we do. So every month we have an all-staff meeting, and we always have at Highlands, and it used to be very small, now it's very big. And we every month at our all-staff meeting, we give away gift cards to people on our team that have demonstrated the value of the month. So we go through the values three times a year. And in front of the whole staff and spouses, we read the nomination that was written in by someone about what an amazing job they did demonstrating a love for people. And we reward them. What gets rewarded gets done. And we reinforce it. What gets rewarded gets reinforced. And so that's a part of our monthly focus. Our all-staff gatherings are really around these four things more than anything else. Of course, we teach leadership, and we teach the Bible and all the things that you would do, but culture is what we know our leaders have to be demonstrating. Ephesians 4:15 and 16. This is now my favorite scripture in the entire Bible. Instead, we speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. This is actually how you disciple, who is the head of his body, the church. He makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. So whether it's worship or parking cars or doing the accounting or rocking the babies or whatever it is, here's what all of us are supposed to do. Help the other parts grow. That's all of our assignment. Whether we're the preacher or the accountant, doesn't matter. We help the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. If it's going to be full of love, the leaders have to be loving. They have to be demonstrating that love. All right. Our next value is pursuing excellence. So how do we demonstrate excellence? Demonstrating excellence. We describe it as this. Think of the church family coming over to your house. What are you going to pay attention to? You're going to clean it up. You're going to prepare them. You're going to help them know where the bathroom is. You're going to think differently and raise probably your standard of living for the guests that are coming over. If you've ever led a small group at your house, you know what I'm talking about. It's the cleanest your house is all week long. But that's demonstrating excellence. But we are the leaders of the church, and that church belongs to us. We are co-heirs with Christ, so that is our house. So whether we're a volunteer or the senior pastor, we need to demonstrate that we're pursuing excellence. Excellence is not having the best. I mean, this is the best, right? This is definitely excellence. This building is amazing. But we have 10 portable churches. Have you been in a middle school boys' bathroom lately? That is the farthest thing from excellence that you could ever imagine. And so if we're going to pursue excellence, excellence is not having the best, it's doing the best with what you have. So I am not saying you have to have a building like this. What I'm saying is whatever venue you have, if it's a middle school with horrible bathrooms, you get in there at 4 a.m. and you bleach the floors. We bought these little scent machines and we plug them in the corner to help it smell a whole lot better. And some schools have metal mirrors, right? It's stainless steel. It's not even a mirror. So we bring in a mirror and we buy expensive soap that smells good. And we clean the sinks and we clean the toilets. They don't belong to us. They belong to the school. But when we're there, that's our house. That's God's house. And we have to demonstrate that we are pursuing excellence. So we're going to do our best with what we have and make sure that we are doing everything we can for people to experience and encounter God. It really, really matters. You have to have an owner's mentality. I prefer to say an heir's mentality. When you get out of the car in the parking lot and you see trash, you pick it up because that's your trash, because this is your house. The house doesn't belong to the senior pastor. It belongs to the sons and daughters. It's all of us. And so that's our trash. It's our bathroom that smells bad. It's like every bit of it is something that we can impact and we can affect. Daniel 6:3. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities. Daniel was a leader that pursued excellence, that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. And so we have to take responsibility over our environments and make them as good as we absolutely can. Culture trumps product every single time. The reason Starbucks is the largest company selling coffee in the world is because of the environment that they created. A space where you actually want to hang out and you want to stay there. They understood excellence and they have pursued it. And coffee is their product, but culture is actually their success. Lastly, we choose joy. So what is demonstrating joy? I love this one because this, I mean, all the excuses line up. Some personalities are not very joyful. We're more serious. We're more critical. God made us that way, and that's okay. It's okay that you don't have a personality that fits all of these things. And that's totally fine, but we ask our leaders to demonstrate all of these things so that we can create that culture. And so no matter the situation, the bigger the challenge, the more important our attitude is. The more things go wrong and the more it's not working out the way we would, the more we should smile, the more we should choose joy in those moments. Pastor Chris's favorite character is Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. You guys know who Tigger is? It's the tiger. Tigers, their tails are made out of springs. They're bouncy, trouncy, all that. But Tigger's number one phrase is, when someone asks him to do something, "Hey, Layne, will you go make copies?" Tigger would say, "That's what Tiggers do best." "Hey, Layne, there's a pandemic. We're not going to be able to gather." "That's what Tiggers do best." "Hey, Layne, people left the church because of something Pastor Chris said." "That's what Tiggers do best." Like it's a decision that we choose to make even when we don't feel like it. And it will create a culture of joy. Oh my goodness, the air conditioning is not working. When you're in Alabama, you will die without air conditioning. But we choose joy. Isn't this awesome? Isn't this amazing? Wow. Hey, Damien, go get some Cokes. And during church, we're going to drive to the store and we're going to fill the back of a Bucky up with I learned what a Bucky is. We're going to fill the back of the Bucky up with ice and Cokes. And when these poor, precious people leave church after they've been miserably hot for an hour, they're going to walk outside and we're going to have cold drinks for them. We're just going to do whatever we can. We're going to make the best with what we have. One time tornadoes came through Birmingham and cut the power in the school that at that time we were one location. We met in a school and there was no power in the building. So there wasn't any way to have church inside. And so we had church in the football stadium outside. That is not easy for a church plant to pull off. But we just said, that's what Tiggers do best. And we made the best of it. And we had church out in the sun. And people still talk about that day. Even though I don't think the worship was great. It was very hard for Pastor Chris to preach from a field up to the bleachers. Like it was just, none of it was what you would want. But we chose joy in the midst of the challenge. It creates an environment, a healthy culture for God to make things grow. We had a trailer. We move our church to these portable locations in trailers. One of our locations had 6 trailers, and the one with all the kids' stuff got stolen the night before church. That's not good. Like we can do without other things, but we got to be able to take care of the kids. But we just chose joy, made the best of it. An amazing quote, and I'll end with this. And Pastor Paul, you can come take the service. Charles Spurgeon wrote this: "People who are very happy especially those who are happy in the Lord, which should be every one of us, are not apt to either give offense or take offense. Their minds are so sweetly occupied with higher things. Man, Layne needs to do that more. That they are not easily distracted by the little troubles which naturally arise, pandemics, tornadoes, power outages, load shedding, among such imperfect creatures as we are. Joy in the Lord is the cure for all discord. Should it not be so? What is this joy but the concord of our soul, the accord of the heart with the joy of heaven? Joy in the Lord then drives away the discords of earth. So at a minimum, make joy one of your values and create that culture so God can move and your church can grow. God bless you guys. Thank you for having us.